So I'm having a bit of a sort of sorting out, catching up kind of a day. It's grey and miserable outside, it's raining, there is nothing else to do at the minute, so this is what I'm doing. So I'm starting off with my Ertl Batman the Animated Series collection, largely to figure out what I'm missing. Now, these figures down here along the bottom, I hadn't intended to get these as part of the set at all, but I picked them up in an auction. And as you can see, there are a good half dozen figures there, of which I have 4. So I'm doing quite well with those already. So there's only a Catwoman and a Robin to go. So I suppose if I trip across them in another auction, I might go for it. You can see they're available for the princely sum of £1.99 at the time. But the nice thing is they're slightly... This is this weird thing with some of these... the plastic that was used for figures. I don't know if you can see this on the camera, but can you see that is ever so slightly yellowed? But it's not it's not the same sort of yellowing as you see on white plastic toys sometimes. This is something different. This is more like a chemical aging thing, I think. I don't know for sure, but I think. So, but the main thing about these that I like is that they've all got the little stickers with them. So that I quite like that they're quite complete. I don't often go for carded stuff, kind of because I have to have carded, but I do have carded things that I don't necessarily get out of the cards. Now, I don't think there's any great collectability with this stuff. I believe there are some new Batman the Animated Series toys coming out, but I do love this particular animated series of Batman. It was incredibly sharp and incredibly well done for its time when it came out. Warner Brothers animation series, really, really impressive stuff. So, I do love the characterizations and the craft, as you'll see shortly. But the figures I hadn't intended to get, but I could well pick those up. So I know I've got 2 gaps there. Now, the vehicles are quite funny. And I say that, I don't mean because they're sort of bad funny at all, but just my collecting experience with them has been decidedly odd. So, this is a bat boat, and as you can see, ironically enough, I have 2 of these. The funny thing is, it doesn't actually... The only way you know it's a bat boat is by the sticker, really. It doesn't really announce itself on the card at all. But you can see there are half a dozen vehicles here, and the figures along the bottom there. But of these vehicles, Gareth very kindly gifted me this one, which is sat there, if it's just about in shot, yes. So that's a Gotham City Police Department helicopter. We've got Bruce Wayne's car, which I picked up recently, which is one of those things that I would never have set out to get, but fell into my lap. I've just discovered that I do have a bat cycle, which I just found last night and brought down for this video. And ironically, if you compare these two, the bat cycle is actually tiny compared to the bat boat. Now, maybe it's because it's intended to be a single seater, so maybe it is kind of that kind of in scale actually. But I just found it was sort of funny that it was a tiny little thing that they'd effectively done. But I've also had a bat wing. In fact, I gave a spare one of these to Gareth the other day, which ironically was probably his in the first place. The ones that say BTs, that have BT stickers, were probably Gareth's originally. So this is obviously the bat wing from the animated series. That was the sort of their take on it. It's not dissimilar to the bat wing that you can see here from the film, from the 1989 film. Got similar sort of curves and stuff. But would you believe it? Despite the fact that I have 2 bat boats, I have never in the wild seen a Batman the Animated Series Batmobile, which is bizarre because I actually have 2 of them. Because this is what you might wonder why I do some of these videos. Part of the reason is my memory's pretty shocking these days, and so I often find that I bring something home only to discover that I've already got it. And this is the case with this. So this is an Eagle Moss model of the Batman the Animated Series Batmobile, which is in and of itself pretty cool, and I like it a lot. But it would be nice to have the entire Batman the Animated Series Ertl collection. And I nearly got one on eBay the other night, but now it's sold, of course. So, as is usual with me, I dither and it disappears, even though no one's probably bought one for months. But anyway, so that remains on my list of things to get. Now, I have covered a lot of Ertl stuff in another Ertl video that I did. But as you can see, I recently picked up this rather nice, clean, sealed Batwing, which is lovely. And also, when I went hunting, I reminded myself that actually I don't need to buy the sort of the micro versions of the Ertl Batmobile, Batwing and Joker van, because I've already got them in this packet in my hand. So I don't actually need those, which is nice. But it did occur to me, when I was looking at my general sort of Batman shelf and my general sort of collection as a whole that's actually on display at the minute, I don't have a middle-sized Batwing or a middle-sized Joker van. And by middle-sized, I mean something more akin to these Batman the Animated Series. Although actually, again, it's not actually that big. But here we go. So on the back here, you can see that they did a 1/43 scale vehicle of each of these, a 1/64 scale. So that's why I don't have it. Assuming that's comprehensive, they didn't do a 1/64 scale Batwing. How interesting. So assuming that's comprehensive, that's why I've never seen one. That makes perfect sense. I wonder why they skipped it for... Why would they do the Joker van and the Batmobile and not do the Batwing in 1/64 scale? I wonder if that's right. Did they just run out of space on the back of the... Oops, on the back of the packet? Well, no, that seems consistent with the back of the Batwing packet as well. How odd. How very, very odd. The question that just flitted through my brain was, why can't I find a Batman the Animated Series Batmobile easily? And the only thing I can think of is that people bought a lot of them and didn't buy so many of the other things, which means that a carded example of it is more unusual than a loose example. But even the loose examples I've seen are really beaten up, so I kind of avoided them. Which again is why I don't even have a loose one knocking about. But what it does tell me is that I have one of these that I can sell, because I don't need it for the purposes of my collection. This one is probably the slightly more beaten up of the two. So that is going to go on an auction pile. I also have these two. These are just the little oddments that I picked up at a larger auction job lot. So I've got a Superman which is kind of in scale with the Batman figures. You can see there. It's not quite the same card back, but the actual figure I think is pretty much the same scale. Batman's actually slightly taller actually. So maybe it's not quite the same scale, but again it's got a little sort of mini comic in with it, which is quite nice. And it does look as if I don't know, Green Lantern, Shazam, Supergirl. So maybe part of a slightly different release then. Collect all the DC Comics superheroes and collector cards. So yeah, it's probably a slightly different Ertl range, but again, one of their superhero tie-ins. And I've also rather bizarrely got a Batman Returns The Penguin's Duck vehicle. Why they chose to release that in full-on Ertl diecast glory, I have no idea. You can see they released the Batmobile again for the Batman Returns, and they've got the Bat Missile and the Bat Ski Boat as well there. But I haven't set out to find these particularly because I was quite happy with just the animated series ones really. And for me, the '89 Batman film is kind of the definitive version from my point of view. So I'm quite happy to have the ones that I've got, but I would like to round it off. And I say what's funny about this is that I think I probably first picked these up when I first went to Gareth's shop, which must be a good sort of year or so back now, if not a bit more. And for some reason, even when I've gone to toy fairs, it's just never caught my eye to get it. But I now know that is about the only one that I'm missing, and maybe if I wanted it, I could get a carded helicopter as well. But that's just it. It's just one of those sort of curious little quirks. But I do have. I'm just thinking out loud now. I do have two Batmobiles. Two animated series Eagle Moss Batmobiles. One's in a slightly sort of more fully formed card than that one. But I suppose I could just take one of those out and use it as a display model. But I quite like them in the box because it's got a bit of... Eagle Moss did quite a nice job with these because they did a bit of a sort of background to it at least. I'm trying to think that whether I've got another one. I think there's. Oh yes, no, I'm thinking of the 89 Batmobile that they do comes with a figure as well, as I recall, and they also did an armoured version. I've got both of those, so I haven't managed to duplicate those, which is good. But yeah, I think that's probably about it on my my sort of Batman the Animated Series collection front. So I'm going to crack on and have a look at some other things that I haven't even opened yet. So I'll see you soon.